Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Michael Rayford, host of Word for Word. This is the show where we talk to professionals about how money works, entrepreneurship, and then even sprinkling some entertainment in there as well. Today's guest is Calvin Strachan, and I think you're going to get a kick out of his story today. Um, I met him a couple weeks, well, actually, it was a couple months ago in Chicago. He is a keynote speaker. He's a facilitator, and he's also a certified career coach. So I want you to welcome Mr. Calvin Strachan. Welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, we were just talking a little bit about where you're from because I didn't notice this until I looked at your LinkedIn profile that you're actually from Canada.
That's right. That's right.
So what is the difference between living in Canada, besides it being extremely cold, the
Yeah.
difference between living in Canada and then doing some work in the US as well? What's that like?
Yeah. What's it like? So Canada has a reputation of being, super nice, super kind. And so we are. I would say very friendly, never felt any kind of animosity much being in Canada. But to be honest, I do travel to the US quite a bit. And so a lot of times I find I would say you're pretty nice too. I get a lot more thank yous, good mornings, how are you? People holding the door, good evening. There's a lot more just sort of like automatic politeness that happens in the US, whereas Canada can be a little more quiet, a little more conservative sometimes.
Mhm.
So I don't see a lot of differences for the places I go. Like I'm going to New York and Chicago's and places like that. And it's pretty similar for the most part.
All right, good stuff. Now, you are a keynote speaker, and so I
Yeah.
got to witness you on stage.
Yes.
Love the passion, love the energy, love the messages and the lessons.
Yeah.
What is it like, or how would you define, because you are a career coach,
Yeah.
how would you define a career coach?
Yeah, I might change just I'm not necessarily focusing on careers, but I would say I do help professionals. So that might be a little bit of a nuance there. So what's it like as a coach for what I do? So when I'm seeing like a VP or a director or a CEO potentially or someone on the front line, they're going to be facing some kind of challenge usually. I want to increase my sales. I want to get a promotion, having trouble leading my team or doing presentations. And so then my job is to figure out what's a specific outcome they're after and help remove any barriers or obstacles and achieve that outcome that they're after. That's what I'm trying to do mostly. It's not so much motivation, pump up, giving advice as it is removing barriers or obstacles to them achieving what they want to go after. Yeah.
So, what are the typical barriers that you see?
It depends. So because each client is different. If you focus on, say, presentation skills, it might be the fact that they're not sure how to make their message more succinct. If they're a leader and they're trying to get the best out of their team, they may not know a good coaching platform or way to actually coach their team. So it really depends on the situation because all the outcomes are very different. And so there always is actually a consistency that I would see across them. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and you were in the medical field
Yeah.
in the early 2000s.
That's right.
So, as an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
there's usually something that happens for individuals to make that shift.
Mhm.
Share with us what happened to you to make you shift into the entrepreneur space.
Yeah, so I've been a sales guy honestly since I was a teenager. So I had gone through so many industries and companies and things. Yes, I was in medical devices and in pharma for a long time, like 14 years. And it got to a point where when I left pharma into med devices, part of that was like I was looking for more money, was one reason, and looking for more impact. So in the medical devices space, I'm in the operating room and I'm helping a surgeon facilitate a surgery and choosing the instruments and directing the nurses. It's a very hands-on situation in medical devices. And the question is, so what happened to go to entrepreneurship? So part of me did the job mainly looking for money, right? And so then that wasn't really that motivating because I'm a natural speaker and I'm part of my career. I used to be an actor as well. And so this notion of being in front of people and really making that real strong impact. And I was speaking part-time while I was working in medical. And so I really wasn't getting the fulfillment from the devices. And so the switch became, I was like, okay, so how do I actually, what job is going to allow me to take care of my family and speak? And that began the quest or the search for what that could be. And so in my intro, you heard me say, I heard you say, I'm a facilitator. So I went into facilitation first. So I was working full time as a facilitator. I would travel around the world. I would go see companies, talk about sales training, presentation skills, coaching, um, this basic mindset stuff, and working with all the big Fortune 500 companies. And it gave me that nice little hit of I'm in front of people, I'm making a better impact, I'm being more fulfilled. And I was doing it full time, and then switched into entrepreneur version of that just a few years ago, where I control all the sort of yes and no's and who I work with and my time, my calendar, and so on. And so that's kind of how it went to be. Yeah, just that search for fulfillment and really getting more juice out of what I was doing.
Okay. Now, as I work on the growth mindset, I have several people who I consider mentors on YouTube,
Yeah,
but a lot of them will say if you're going to go into the entrepreneur space,
yeah,
the best way to do that is to first find a problem to solve.
mhm,
Once you find that problem, everything else will pretty much fall into place. So,
okay.
what was the problem that you were trying to solve, or what did you identify as a problem?
Yeah, so my platform is called Find a Way to Win. You can see it here on the screen. And so I focus on how to help folks perform better under pressure. So the problem I saw was people would see me and go, "Oh, you're a motivational speaker," right? And motivational speakers, it's a misconception. I was like, I don't want to go around being a pump up, rah rah kind of guy. I do want to solve a problem. And so the problem I found was like, you look across all the industries I've done and all the activities I've been in, sports, acting, sales, is rarely a question of motivation. But what tends to happen is people get nervous under pressure. So when all of a sudden it's the game winning shot, or this is a really important presentation for the business, or I got to hit my number, or I got to nail this pitch for the RFP, very talented people now are wobbling in those moments. So the problem was, how do I help people get through that moment with technique, not with pump up, you can do it kind of stuff, but like actual specific techniques you can do to help them handle those pressure moments.
Okay, that's good. Now, the pandemic presented an opportunity for a lot of individuals to
Mhm.
venture into this space as a coach. I mean, you
Yeah.
can see it all over YouTube. If you
Mhm.
want to become a coach, develop a program, whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
do you feel like the market is getting now oversaturated, or how would you compare what you do compared to what you sometimes see on YouTube?
Yeah, do I think it's more saturated? Probably not. Sometimes people think, oh, scarcity mentality is not enough for everybody, that kind of thing. I think it's enough for everybody. I think the difference between just people going, I'm a coach, and what I do is I went through a series of training. So there's something called the International Coach Federation. You have to go through like 128 something hours of actual instruction first, and then do another 100 hours of paid coaching clients, and then do a test in front of an actual expert coach. So it's a pretty rigorous process versus someone saying, "Oh, you know what? I can coach you." And there's like common sensing their way through it kind of thing. It's like, no, no, no. I went through a whole system and framework and a process. So then when I'm in front of a CEO or in front of a university student or in front of a divorcee, I have a process to fall back on versus just here's my common sense idea. And
Right.
that's the big difference. Yeah.
Right, right. Credentialed. And so you say, and my question is just what does Tony Robbins
Mm.
mean to your career and your business? I mean, that's the only way I know how to ask the question because this is a guy who's been monumental for many, many years, and you've
Yeah.
got the experience and had the opportunity to work with him. What was that like?
Yeah. 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 So Tony, I don't have much contact with him or his organization nowadays. But I would say when I was just getting going, massive, massive impact. And my story with him is unique because I was a fan. I had the tapes, I had the CDs, I had the books, and I'd watch them on the infomercial and all that sort of stuff, right? And it helped me in my early sales career. Some of his stuff on state, some of his stuff on make your move, all the phrases he comes up with, right? So why is my story different than anybody else's? Well, my now wife and I went to see him in Australia for Date with Destiny for those who are fans of his. And at that event, he called on my wife and then my girlfriend at the time, and then, "Who is this guy you're with?" So then he calls me up as well. And so what happens now is I'm now talking to this guy I only know him through a voice in a car stereo, is now talking to me directly and for hours. And the awkward part is like we actually didn't get along at first. We actually argued. So
Really?
he was, "You said this." I was like, "No, I didn't." And we were literally arguing with each other. And then the crowd, of course, is taking his side, his event. And I was like, no, I was standing there toe to toe with him. It was pretty interesting. And there was a point where he's like, listen, 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 listen. Like, you know what? Let's just drop our swords. You know what? And I can tell if we weren't here right now, you and I would get along. Let's just reset. Right. And so we do. And we have a talk and we start joking back and forth. And it's really pretty special. And then later on in the same seminar, he went out in the crowd and grabbed me again and brought me back up on stage again. And so now I'm like, this is insane. Like I'm getting this first hour and a half, whatever it was the first time, and now another hour with this guy, one on one, no cameras. I was like, this is insane. And he's coaching me how to be a speaker in front of his audience. So his impact was pretty massive because I'm sitting here going, this guy is someone who's revered by a lot of folks, and they spend a lot of money to get close to him. And he is just voluntarily giving me his attention and time. I was blown away by his generosity, to put it mildly. And so then I'll make the story a little shorter for you is like I went and volunteered at an event shortly afterwards. And it was just helping out the event, trying to pay it forward, help him out, thank you, kind of thing. I'm volunteering. And again, he comes over and he grabs me and he hugs me. He's like, "How are you? How's it going?" And I'm like, he's literally lifting me in the air. And
I mean, he's a big guy.
oh yeah, he's 6'7". I don't know how much he weighs, but he's a big dude. And he's just got me up. And I'm like, oh my, and all the people who volunteered are seeing this going, "How do you know him? Like, what's going on? What did you do?" I was like, "Nothing. It's just, I don't know." And it was unbelievable the amount of attention I was getting. And so naturally, I wanted to sort of pay this forward. So I started something in Toronto called the Toronto Power Group and basically helping people for free, not for free, but for very low cost, helping them to improve their lives. So I did a seminar every month for about 120, 150 people, teaching some of his techniques, but other techniques as well, and did that for about 8 years. And that spurred me on to become a coach. And that's where I got my idea. Because when I was doing those seminars, there was points where people would ask me for direct help, and I was just kind of common sensing my way through it and
Mhm.
guessing, and it just was not serving people. So that's when I went, I got to get more serious. Got my coaching stuff, and then guess what happened next? Is Tony's company said, "Hey, you know what? Why don't you come coach with us?" And then I joined their company. I became one of their coaches. I started coaching his clients, getting way more reps in with a very high level clientele, as you can imagine. And so it was just a huge fast forward in my coaching skill, coaching Tony Robbins clients. And so I owe a lot of my early development, my practice, to him. Absolutely.
So there's two things I definitely want to talk about within that story.
Mhm,
Number one, you talked about the fact that traveling around the world,
mhm.
and I'm sure, as you know, there are countless people who never leave a 10-mile radius of where they were born,
Right.
right? They don't put themselves in the right environment so that they can grow. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on being willing to put yourself in a different environment in order to grow and become successful?
I think, yeah, there's this phrase called diversity of thought that's kind of floating around out there these days, right? I think to move around and see different things helps with diversity of thought, right? It really does. And then your ability to have a more open mind, see things from more perspectives, it helps you be more versatile when it comes to finding solutions. You really want to be more resourceful. That's a very common phrase too. Something else in that space is I talk about pressure, is the only way to get better at pressure is to put yourself in pressure. And so when I go to like a Saudi Arabia or I go to a Brazil or I go to the US sometimes, I'm in pressured moments where this is not my normal environment and I have to somehow still connect and create an outcome for these folks. That's the best way to get better at that moment, not by resisting it. Right. So I think it's really important for folks to see some, you don't get crazy with this, but you want to have some more exposure for sure.
Absolutely. Second thing is you were working on yourself before you went to the Tony Robbins event.
Yes.
So now we're talking about being ready for whenever that day comes.
Mhm.
When it's time for you to perform, you're ready to perform. Because if you're not ready, that's an extremely missed opportunity. So
Yeah.
share with us your thoughts on just your mindset of, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to work on these skills to grow, but then
Yeah.
I'm also going to put myself in this space because I don't know what's going to happen. And the ultimate thing happened to you.
Yeah. So when it comes to performing and how I get ready, so my keynote presentations, let's say, I over prepare. And so something I learned through my pressure work is this idea: if you're not over prepared, you're under prepared. So what that means is, even though I know the keynote so well, I'm still redoing it multiple times, like more times than you think is reasonable before the presentation. So when I saw you in Chicago that day on stage, I've done that talk, I don't know, 7 or 8 years now, but still coming into that moment for I don't know, 2, 3, 4 weeks before, I was still every day going through it, going through it, going through it, going through it. And so when the moment comes and you're on stage, it just feels second nature. Now, as you mentioned, things happen. Are you ready? So that day when I saw you, I had my speech cut by I think 15 minutes because they'd gone over for the first presentation,
Mhm.
had to hit a certain award or a lunch situation. And hey, can you get this thing done in 40 minutes now? I was like, whoa. And so within a minute, it's like, how do I adjust what you can only make those adjustments that well if you're over prepared. And so the audience was none the wiser. They had no idea that I cut 15, 20 minutes out of that thing and still had the same level of impact that we had, right? That all comes from the preparation. Absolutely.
That's really good because for 17 years, I taught higher education at a community college, and I
Mhm.
taught communications, public speaking, and that's one of the things I would always tell my students. You have to know your speech like the back of your hand. You got to say it in your head multiple times because you never know what's going to happen. But then
Yeah,
also, if you've practiced it so many times, and if you do mess up, they don't know until you tell them.
right.
So that's excellent. So what does the next 5 years look like for Calvin Strong?
Whew, tough question. I'm not really sure, but I would say this. I like to see more of my keynote business developing, so I do a lot of facilitation, a lot of coaching I do, but I get a more of a rise out of the keynotes. So seeing the find a way to win performance under pressure growing, and I'm actually branching off now into team connectivity as far as belongingness and psychological safety stuff. So seeing that whole arm of my business explode would be great. Now, for 5 years, who knows? The way things are going, AI and self-driving cars and all this stuff. Let's just hope the next 2 years go crazy, and we'll see where we get to five. It's things are going so fast; it's unbelievable these days.
So what would you tell someone who, is considering getting into this space and does
Yeah,
not really know where to start
yeah.
or how to get to the next level? What's some advice you would give those individuals?
Uh, what's an advice because I'm getting into this business? I say you got to get good at rejection is one of the first things. Like I think my early sales career, my early acting careers really helped me get good at taking feedback and criticism well, you know? So when you come into this, a lot of folks are super passionate, enthusiastic. I want to help people, which is very noble. The hard part is people are pretty tough with their criticisms. And so if you're not ready for that, it can knock you out of the game pretty fast. So you're coming in, you got a great speech, a great message, you want to help someone's problem, excellent. When someone's like, "You're terrible. You shouldn't do this. You offended me. This is an insult to my," like when you start hearing those really hard phrases,
Yeah.
can you keep going? That's one of the pieces that gets really overlooked. Not everyone's going to go, "Way to go, good effort." No, they're going to say that was awful and you shouldn't do this. And then what do you do when that happens? You know, that's an important piece. Toughen up your skin, get ready for the rejection.
So as a public speaker, I know when I got out of college, I contemplated joining. It was like the Illinois Speakers Association, those type of organizations.
Yeah.
Do you think those are as effective as what you went through to become credentialed
Mhm.
as a coach?
There's a couple things here. So the speakers associations like the Toastmasters of the world or the Illinois Speakers Club, those kind of things, I think they're great, but they're very different than the ICF coaching certification. Okay. So if you're going to become a speaker and you want to get some more practice and be supported, absolutely get in there with Toastmasters, those kind of things. I even did Toastmasters in my early days, to learn how to build a speech and get around people who are positively supporting you and they know how to give feedback properly. Like all of that stuff is great. I think what fast forwarded me was speaking to the public. So my public seminars I was doing, and I had no control over what they're going to say or do. So I could have someone in the audience coming against me. Someone could go online and they have the freedom of not having their name published and just rip me apart
Yep.
in a social media post or in a Facebook post or something. And that really toughens me up and figures out how do you get good quick. Like, so it's different. Toastmasters I love and it will help you, but getting in front of the public and doing it and testing it out for real, you're gonna learn fast when you're doing that.
It's like becoming a stand-up comic and you're just working the circuit going into cities and clubs. You have no idea what the audience is going to be like. But
Yeah,
like you said, you have to have very, very tough skin if you're going to
yeah,
survive.
yeah,
All right,
yeah,
awesome.
and
Go
yeah.
ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, there's a Netflix special with Kevin Hart and, Chris Rock just came out, and they talk about that, like, getting out there and testing and trying and learning and seeing, and, like, it's hard to replace that when you're in a safe place like a Toastmasters or your company's district meeting or, at school projects, those kind of places, they're good, it's just you're gonna see your skill real quick when you're in front of a unknown audience.
Absolutely. So we're going to shift now to, so we've talked about your past, how you got into what you're doing now,
Yeah.
potentially where you see yourself in 5 years.
Mhm.
So as we wind down in the last segment, we're going to talk a little bit about how money works. And
Sure.
so our mission is to eradicate financial illiteracy.
Yeah.
And so right now there are about 2.5 billion people across the world that are financially illiterate. So just imagine that many people not knowing how to read.
Mm.
So it's the same type of situation. So I want to start by asking you,
Sure.
what was it like in your house? How was money viewed?
I think, I'm pretty similar to most of America, North America, right? This notion of it's not talked about, or if it is, it's in a negative context. Money doesn't grow on trees. What are you made of money? What are you doing, Mr. Big? Like, that kind of, and not really explaining those concepts. It's just sort of like this avoided taboo topic. And if it comes up, it's sort of shamed, you know? You go to a restaurant and it's like, "Why are you ordering that? Why do you want the most expensive thing?" "Oh," like that type of stuff, and so you kinda pull back a bit. Yeah.
How old are your children?
10 and 4 right now. Yeah.
So my son is 6 and my daughter is 16 months. So right now I'm thinking of ways of how to have these very simple conversations about money.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
what are some things that you're doing with your children because they're a little bit older
Yeah.
to teach them about how money works?
Yeah, so something I just discovered, I haven't actually implemented it yet, we've only been talking about it with my oldest, is creating a kind of a system of economy in the house, meaning showing her how what you do creates income. And so the reason I haven't started it yet, because we're still trying to figure out which tasks are we going to assign money to.
Hmm.
Meaning, if you clean whatever costs me money in the house, I will then pay you that money instead of paying it out.
Hmm.
So, for example, if I have a house cleaner, maybe I pay her for a quarter of the house, and we have a ledger where it's like, you've worked this many hours, it's going to be this. So she can really see how her actions turn into money. And what we're going to do is at the end of the week, after she tabulates all of her little tasks, we would give her a paycheck. Okay. And so already she has a bank account already. So has her own debit card, her own checking account, her own savings account. When she gets money now, I do say, look, you're going to put 10% into savings. Like it's already been happening for a while. But I think we're going to update to this place of creating a system of economy in the house for her and probably, believe it or not, for the 4-year old too. Not the same level, of course,
Right.
but start the conversation even earlier with her.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's good because there are statistics that we've not uncovered, but that states like by the time a child is between the age of 7 and 9, they have already developed their financial habits because,
Yeah.
of course, it's the environment. They repeat what they see their parents do. So I think that's excellent, excellent what you're doing. So let me ask you now,
Yeah.
what message would you share with the audience now about what you do? Um, if there are individuals who want to get to that next level, like on your website, you have a button that says, book a call. So what
Mhm.
type of individuals would book a call with you to
Mhm.
experience your knowledge and expertise?
We got a couple different avenues there. So booking a call would be a coaching call, let's say. So someone's like, "Hey, you know what? I want to take my career to the next level. I want to become a better salesperson. I want to become a better athlete." Whatever the thing is they want to work on for coaching would be someone who would reach out to me for a book a call. There's also the notion of book me for speaking. So then it might be an event planner planning their next conference, or it might be a corporate event planner booking their next sales meeting, or it might be the VP of sales wants me to work with their sales team, whatever. So those type of folks will usually be reaching out. So either from a coaching capacity, one-on-one, or large group capacity for a keynote, typically.
Okay, awesome. And so, just for the audience, how can they reach out to you? What's your link for your website?
Yeah, so it's my name. So www.calvinstrachan.com. You can go there, and there's all kinds of buttons you can hit to either book me, or even I think my number is actually there as well to
Okay,
talk to Hutch, and he can book me for a speech or a one-on-one, whatever it might be, or LinkedIn. You can go to LinkedIn as well, and I've got my numbers on there and email on there as well. Either way,
okay.
can get me.
So, website, LinkedIn. Are you on any other platforms?
Yeah, I'm on them all the platforms, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. I was doing TikTok for a while, but kind of fell asleep on that one. But yeah, the major ones: LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. You can find me there.
All right. Well, Calvin Strawn, it has been a pleasure speaking with you today. It's been a pleasure meeting you because,
Yes, sir.
again, you never know what story someone has to share.
Yes,
And I hope that this isn't the last time that we talk or get to see each other, because
absolutely.
again, I talked about being in the right environment and meeting new people, because you never know what the future holds for individuals. So I do appreciate your time, and thank you for being a guest on Word for Word, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate the time. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Absolutely. You and the family have a great holiday as well. All right.
You too, Michael. Take
All right.
care.
Be safe. All right.